Hello guys, this is your friend Dark Verse. We are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Tsunade Denied Naruto Hokage, Awakening His Deadly Button Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. It had been 10 years since the death of Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha, betrayed and murdered by the other members of the Konoha 11, his sensei Kakashi, and even Jiraiya, his own godfather, on Tsunade's order. Konoha lost a lot friends after that got out. It was reviled by Danzo of all people during his execution. 8 years ago, 2 months after Naruto's death, Jiraiya had found evidence of Danzo working with Orochimaru during the Oto Suna invasion. His execution was to be witnessed by Konoha and Suna alike. Danzo's wooden arm with the Sharingans, as well as his right Sharingan eye, after being discovered upon his standoff at the hands of the Uchiha and Sannin, did it really become apparent just how crazy Danzo's fanaticism had made him. The Uchiha and Senju wanted to lynch Danzo right then and there for his perversion of the family's bloodlines, but Shikamaru stopped them, saying the best way to get even was for Konohagakure as a whole to want him dead, and they still needed to know what else Danzo knows. Maybe Orochimaru would be next to be taken down. Tsunade begrudgingly agreed. The idea came after by the Konoha council, mainly the civilian side, to invite Suna. The idea was that witnessing Danzo's death might make their alliance even stronger, knowing Konohagakure does not suffer a traitors to their friends even in their own ranks. This would backfire in Tsunade and clan heads' opinion, but were outvoted. Konoha Council Chambers day before execution. Tsunade was sitting in her chair in the center of the council. Gaara was to her right in equal sitting. Jiraiya was to her left, standing arm crossed, though hiding it quite well, the guilt of what he had done to Naruto. The depression still clear in his eyes, even if the glare he pointed at Danzo helped hide it. The advisors to the Hokage Homura and Kaharu were there as well, not looking too happy at seeing Danzo. When the evidence of Danzo's deeds were brought to light, the two quickly abandoned him out of such hatred and shame of him and for themselves that they gave Tsunade their retirement forms, saying that they couldn't believe they helped such a madman for such a long time, and recommended Shikaku Nara to be their replacement. Tsunade agreed this would be their last day as the Hokage's advisors, counselors of Konoha, and honored guests of Sunagakure. Today we see Danzo Shimura pay for his crimes against 2 of the 5 great shinobi villages. For Suna, Danzo's crimes are aiding and abetting with a known traitor in the murder of Rasa, the 4th Kazekage of Sunagakure and father to the 5th Kazekage. And for Konoha, adding known traitor Orochimaru in assassinating the 3 Ed Hokage Hiruzen Saratoti. Adding Oto in Oto Suna invasions of Konoha. Kidnapping bloodline users for Root. Not disbanding Root program even when ordered to by the 3rd Hokage. Danzo, how do you plead? Tsunade said. Danzo looked at Suan, then Jiraiya, and finally Gaara, and began to laugh. Danzo hadn't laughed since before the first shinobi war almost 60 years ago, so it came out more like a raspy cackle. It scared many counselors in the room, but as quickly as it came it stopped. Hokage-sama, all I've ever done was look out for Konoha. I am the root that keeps the great tree standing at all cost. You, Jiraiya, Kakashi, and the Konoha 11 have done that as well the day you killed Naruto Uzumaki. Tsunade and Jiraiya's eyes widened. Danzo was supposed to have a seal on his tuft to keep him from spilling SS-ranked secrets. Jiraiya did this personally. The council and Suna officials shocked. The clan heads didn't even know about the assassination. It was an SS-racked mission from the Hokage herself and can't be divulged to any one family included. It made them realize why their kids were a whole lot quieter. The official story was that Naruto was on a long-term mission. He was later found dead. They even had a core made to look like Naruto that Jiraiya had discovered later, but before that it was also going away to flush out the Akatsuki that were looking for the Kyuubi outside the village undefeated while they had the chance. Silence from the spectators, then a rush of cheers from the civilian council of Konohagakure and anger from the Sunagakure shinobi. Gaara was shocked, angry, sad at hearing not only Danzo's words, but the cheers of the council that'd make him unbelievably mad. He festered for him. If he wasn't the man, he was now a Kazekage with friends, family, comrades, with a village depending on him. Blood would have been spilled, but in lieu of that, Gaara shouted. Hot. The key flowed through the chamber. Sand appeared everywhere, but as it was stated, Gaara is now of a higher standing and in control of his emotions. For the most part, the sand fell back to his gourd key, if only barely vanished. Tsunade Senju after Danzo is sent to hell where he belongs. We will have a very long discussion about this outrage and why Suna and Konoha should still be allies. Tsunade would have spoken, but Danzo beat her to it. Are you really going to take that from a rival Kage Senju? Alliance or not, every village is still a potential enemy. Even every shinobi in this village, if not trained correctly, is a threat to its power. Silence, Danzo. Tsunade screamed. You don't get to make clams like that, not after everything you've done. You are nothing but a bitter, vindictive old man who will never be the Hokage of Konoha. Danzo narrowed his one good eye at Tsunade. Maybe Senju, but I've been running the village's protection as the Dark Hokage for years. Since the supposed god of shinobi became a glorified pencil pusher doing what must be done. Everything from military activity to assassination to unauthorized recon without Hiruzen looking over my shoulder. I am what the Hokage, what you should be, eliminating threats both foreign and domestic, serving the village by making it the most feared and powerful. If I was Hokage, Genin would be trained from day one. Doing at the very least C-ranked missions and do away with those stupid D-ranked ones that turn shinobi into more of a novelty than the warriors they should be, but instead they paint fences and chase cats around. Hardly what I call work for soldiers that were trained from their first day in the academy on the best ways to kill, learning about the art of the shinobi only to be caretakers and farm hands and animal control. It disgusted me to no end. Danzo said the last part through his teeth. Tsunade anger showed. What would you have done then besides start a war with the world to prove your strength? Danzo's face and voice lacked anything resembling emotion. I would have put an end to the farce of shinobi with humanity and used Tobirama Sensei's teachings. He had better understanding than Hashirama-sama ever did that victory comes with a price. Sacrifices must be made. I learned that lesson well in the first war. One lost a lot of friends and clansmen. He looked to his right side. I learned that day that as Hokage you must put aside all emotions, all attachments, to do what needs to be done and sacrifice what you need to sacrifice in order to active victory, even going so far as to let Orochimaru amputate my arm and remove my eye and replace it with what you called an abomination of science and God. I called it progress. I did it all for the sake of the village I love and would do anything to protect, even at the cost of my very body and soul. That is what all Konoha shinobi should be. Don't you dare use Konoha to justify your actions, Danzo. What you have done to yourself is of your own volition, including that monstrosity you let Orochimaru put on you. And as for the war, that was different. Lord Tsunade did what he did because we were in the middle of a war. You and Sarutobi Sensei were the only ninja on hand and he trusted your abilities more than anyone else's. Remember, Danzo, he sacrificed himself to save you, your team, and Sarutobi Sensei's team, said Jiraiya in anger. I know he did, boy. I was there in the trenches before you could walk. I know war, its faults and its uses. Tobirama Sensei made a mistake as a leader. He should have sent Sarutobi out and saved himself so he could come back and destroy Kumo full force later and show the power of the great Konohagakure, but instead he sacrificed himself, and not but a month later talks of peace with the very person that killed our Hokage, your uncle. Danzo looked at Tsunade with distant. Why didn't you volunteer to hold them off back then, Danzo? Said Kaharu, the advisor to the Hokage, former female member of the legendary team Tobirama. What? Said Danzo angrily. You forget I was there all those years ago with you, Hiruzen and Tobirama Sensei, and the same goes with Homura here. I remember it very clearly. Tobirama asked for a volunteer to hold off the Kumo kill squad after us giving the rest of us time to escape. I remember that look in your eyes, Danzo. It was fear. You were going to volunteer but didn't fear that you have preached for so long that a shinobi shouldn't have held you back. Hiruzen was just as scared as the rest of us but didn't hesitate for a moment when it came to his comrade's safety. It took me many years to realize it was Tobirama's final test. We were Konoha's elite, the smartest, strongest and most loyal. Any one of us could have been Hokage that day if we volunteered, but we, unlike Hiruzen, couldn't find the courage to do so. Kaharu said, looking at Danzo dead in his eye, clearly not liking his courage being in question. As Hokage you must defend not only your village, but all who live in it know that to be Hokage means being the head of a larger family. This is the will of fire Hashirama-sama dreamed of, and all Hokages past and present must abide by it. Tobirama-sensei was going to sacrifice himself regardless of who volunteered. He just wanted to know that he was leaving Konoha in good hands. I myself may have respected your realism when it came to the security of Konoha Danzo, and I believe you would lay down your life for it even now, because in your own way you were always loyal to Konoha and would continue protecting it to the end," said Homura, catching many by surprise. Their eyes grow cold however as Homura spoke once again. "However, you have done too much damage to the reputation of Konoha, and your traitorous acts costed us a Hokage, a brilliant shinobi, and a very close friend. The atrocities you have committed under this village's name will not go unpunished," he said, loud and clear, anger in his voice. Danzo was angry. He looked at the old advisors. "Don't forget Kaharu and you, Homura. You two have helped lay most of the groundwork for a good number of those so-called atrocities. You two backed me more than Hiruzen on a great many things. Root existed because of your backing me. You knew Hiruzen wouldn't do the things I would going unchecked was because of your backing. The funding you gave me for all these years and convincing these good-for-nothing counselors to outvote many of the Hokage's propositions has allowed me to come this far. You and Homura have been nothing but tools going against your so-called friend for over 3 decades. You knew Hiruzen was getting old and lost much of his flame as a shinobi. He could have killed me when me and Hanzo teamed up. He could have killed Orochimaru when he attacked, but Hiruzen was weak and wouldn't kill his one-time student. And as for my not volunteering all those years ago, that one act of hesitation on my part turned me into what I am today. I have spent years making up for it, so much so you joined me instead of you, best friend." The two aging advisors lowered their heads in shame at that. Danzo was right. "It's a pity, Tsunade. When you took my advice on Naruto, I was almost starting to see you as a real leader and Jiraiya as a real shinobi. Shame not even the protection of the very village your family created, fought and dead for is not good enough for you." That got Gaara's attention. "What do you mean advice? What did you tell Senju?" Tsunade ignored Gaara, not using her title to stop Danzo. "Anbu." She yelled. The Anbu speeded towards Danzo, but where? Stopped by sand. "Kazahage Dono," Tsunade shouted to try and stop Gaara, but the look in his eyes froze, not just her but all in the room, Konoha and Suna alike. Though not directly at her, she could still see it. Gaara with his sand flowing all around the room, chin resting on his crossed hands, elbows firmly on the table, calm yet cold, eyes frozen in a chilling sense of malice. "Danzo, it is taking a lot of my willpower not to revert to my past self, the one that struck fear into the very fabric of my own people, the self that almost justified the bigotry Jinchuriki have faced. It was this past self of mine that almost distorted this village, if not for the efforts of one man, a man that saved me from the darkness, that helped me overcome and be what I am today, and this is the man you claim to have a hand in the death of. So tell me, Danzo Shimura of Konohagakure, what did you say to Tsunade?" His voice and deeds from the past echoed in the minds of all in the room and set shivers up their spines, yet Danzo was calm and collected. Danzo gave Gaara his same indifferent expression he always had and spoke. "I told Tsunade the truth. Naruto was growing to be the danger he was always going to be to the village without proper guidance, but how I said it to her and what she found out when I was captured are different," Danzo said vaguely. "What do you mean by that?" The Kazekage said, eyes locked onto Danzo's very soul. "I told Senju of the degradation of Naruto's seal. After some long and costly research, I discovered that even though Naruto can take the Kyuubi's chakra whenever he liked, he didn't, because prolonged exposure to that level would destroy his body and would allow the Kyuubi to take over, and the seal itself was used on the fly. As they say, it had way too many drawbacks, but there was a failsafe the fourth Hokage put in the seal. If Naruto was killed by unnatural means, the Kyuubi world die With him, or at the very least it would rip the monster apart to the point where it would take centuries to reform if at all it was true. But as I said, Naruto rarely used the Kyuubi on lease pushed normally into a uncontrollable rage. You've seen it, Jiraiya. Same with Hatake Uchiha and Haruno. Scary, isn't it? Now imagine what 16 years of bottled up anger from almost 2 decades of beatings, hatred and ignorance from your own people every day of your life. You know that very well, don't you, Gaara? Quote. What Danzo said made sense to many civilian counselors and the clan heads. Danzo looked at the people and smiled. It's funny, if Naruto was given to me to begin with, none of this would have happened. He would have been the weapon he was born to become, but because of Hensen's weakness and the village's bigotry, Naruto became a clear threat. I never wanted people to find out about his tenet for this very reason. Root, however, would have been his home with like-minded people who respected power and the chain of command. Naruto could have showed his true potential. I wouldn't have cared just about his tenet. He would have been trained by the best in all forms of combat, not just his power from the Kyuubi. Naruto could have been a Jonin captain by now and very well have succeeded me when my time to leave this world came. His potential could have been limitless like his parents. Tsunade's eyes widen. He wouldn't, she thought. And who would they be? Gaara said. Before Danzo could say, a fist flew past his sand and into Danzo's face, shooting him to a wall. It should have knocked him out. That fist belonged to Jiraiya. I've heard enough from you, Danzo. Jiraiya shouted angrily. You have disrespected our Hokage's Konohagakure, its allies, and know you want to leak more S-ranked secrets. Not anymore. Tonight I'm going to seal that mouth of yours shut. Go a proper this time, then tomorrow you're going to die in front of the village you disgraced with your actions. An angry Jiraiya yelled. Danzo, with blood leaking down his mouth, chuckled. What's the point of it being classified anymore, Jiraiya? Are you afraid that it will show just how much of failure you truly are as a sensei and as a shinobi? He said, smiling, then whisper so only Jiraiya could hear, or even as a godfather, that stunned Jiraiya, making him wince in guilt. Take him away. Tsunade ordered. Ambu appeared, grabbed Danzo and disappeared silently, quickly followed by a very angry Jiraiya. Danzo pissed him off so much Tsunade wasn't even a factor right now. The council and Suna officials looked at each other, suspicious of one another. Gaara broke that silence by standing and saying, we're going back to the hotel. We will see Danzo's execution, then leave this accursed village. Hokage, I expect a meeting first thing after the execution. No excuses. Gaara and company left the chambers. Tsunade's head hanging low, voice in but a whisper, everyone dismissed. Everyone filed out of the room. Jiraiya, who was normally there for her but already left to deal with Danzo, leaving her alone. When the door closed behind them, she waited a minute, then began to cry. Torture and interrogation HQ. 20 minutes later. Danzo was strapped to a chair, blood pouring down his face, chest and legs. Anko and Ibiki watching in the back ground, getting a first-hand look at what happens when you anger a Sannin. Neither have ever seen this side of Jiraiya before. The normality, goofy, easygoing, perverted Sannin was ripping Danzo to shreds. They never liked Danzo, but the rarest thing happened. The head tortures felt if only slightly sorry for Danzo, even if they were taking notes of Jiraiya's technique. And even with the violence infected on him, Danzo held in the pain, grinding his teeth. The former root commander was never going to give Jiraiya the satisfaction of hearing him scream in pain when it was done. Danzo grinned, if only slightly. I thought you would finally be the shinobi you're known for, but at the end of the day, no matter how many titles you and Senju have, Jiraiya, you two are not worthy of be called ninja, a perverted clown and a bitter drunk. You two are such a disappointment to this village. If I would have trained the three of you, we'd still have Orochimaru. You would have taken your job more seriously, and Tsunade wouldn't have the emotional crutch about her boyfriend and brother who knows Jiraiya. Quote. He said with a smirk. You might have even had a chance with her. Jiraiya's fist hit Danzo in the face, breaking his nose, knocking him out. Shut the up. Jiraiya yanked Danzo's tuft from his mouth using a piece of paper with a seal on it, placed it on Danzo's tuft. The seal would render Danzo unable to speak and burn. All the while Danzo was alive, he looked at his two counterparts Anko and Ibiki with authority in his voice. He said, take the piece of shit to his cell. I want him on round the clock. Watch anyone this up will be next to see me mad. Understood? Quote. The two nodded and got out of Jiraiya's way. While made his was out, Jiraiya needed a drink and he wouldn't stop till the execution tomorrow. 2 hours later in Danzo's cell, Danzo woke up with a massive headache, the pain Jiraiya inflicted on him taking its toll, the burning of the seal making his mouth feel like it was on fire, but Danzo wouldn't feel that pain for long. However, if Jiraiya would have bothered to look, he would have noticed a second seal under Danzo's tough, a nullification seal that was made special for what had happened to him previously when he activated it. Cancelled out Jiraiya's seal. He also had a suicide seal on his upper right wisdom tooth. Every root member had one, including him, even if he never thought he'd ever use it. Danzo could have smiled at Jiraiya's stupidity, but didn't, even if he wanted to, with all his hard work undone, with his sacrifices in vain, abandonment by the council and his closest allies, the Hokage's advisors, Homura and Kaharu. Danzo had nothing to smile about. For decades he had been in Hiruzen Sarutobi's shadow, doing everything he couldn't and wouldn't do as Hokage, putting his honor to the side for his bigger picture of making Konoha his home, his village, the most powerful force in the world, and he could not let anything stand in the way of that. Not a rival village trying to conquer or destroy Konoha, or the weak-willed and minded fools in it trying to pacify his village either. Danzo had done everything to stop these things his whole life, and what does he get? Executed tomorrow for treason. Him, Danzo Shimura, Konohagakure's most fearlessly loyal shinobi, then find destroy his village, ruin his legacy, everything he had fought for. He, the last surviving Shimura, will use this to let them all know what they have done to the son of their greatest hero, the fourth Hokage. Day of Danzo's execution. Danzo was walked down a path made between a crowds waiting to see the traitor die. He long stopped his false limping and walked perfectly fine, his one good arm tied behind his back to a rope around his waist, his one eye looking forward to the pole he'd be tied to. Tsunade to the right of it, Jiraiya to its left. Danzo's trademark, pure neutral look was on his face. A civilian and shinobi alike shouted, "Traitor," and "Disease of Konoha." At him it didn't surprise him to see Homura and Kaharu closely watching the two aging advisors and former teammates of Hiruzen. After hearing the Danzo once worked with Hanzo the Salamander in an assassination attempt against Hiruzen, the two wanted Danzo dead. They may have not have always agreed with the Hokage, but that didn't mean they didn't respect, care, or wanted their oldest and dearest friend dead. And when more information reached them about Danzo's other dealings come to light, it disgusted them to no end. Even in their advanced years they fought with the troops during the Oto-Suna invasion. Their code, practice what you preach, and they did. Homura and Kaharu took a chunk out of Orochimaru's invasion's force, saving fleeing citizens and injured shinobi. One dose not be put on a team with the god of shinobi, and be trained by a Hokage and end up weak. They were here for two reasons: see the death of Danzo and make absolutely sure it worked. They knew better than anyone that Danzo was the trickiest bastard you would ever meet, and they knew most surviving root members were still loyal to him and would try to save his life if given the chance, and were going to be a part of the execution squad charged with Danzo's death. Danzo walked atop the platform with his guards and was tied to the pole. From there he could see the crowds and the Konoha 11 with access to the front row. Their hand in Naruto's death took its toll worst, so when Tsunade told them it was a mistake, a cloud of guilt washed over them. They avoided the Suna guests like the plague on Tsunade's orders, for fear Gaara will flip and kill them. Shikamaru looked a little more depressed. Apparently Gaara's sister Tamari didn't want to speak to him, and even then Gaara would forbid his sister from being with anyone of Konoha. Regardless, Danzo found them pathetic. This is what his village had protecting it. He didn't think it would last another year with these good-for-nothing children at the helm. Once you cut the root off the tree it will fall. A pity, he thought to himself, a sadden for his beloved Konoha. Tsunade raised her hand in the air, silencing the crowd with chakra-enhanced vocals. She spoke, People of Konoha and of Suna, we are here today to witness the death of a traitor Danzo Shimura. You have been judged by the Council and Hokage of Konohagakure and by the honored Kazekage of Sunagakure and have been found guilty on all accounts and will be executed by means of the Great Element Release Execution. The Great Element's execution was created by Hiruzen Sarutobi during the Great Shinobi War, separating into 5 clones of himself. They would then use Hiruzen's strongest jutsu of their particular given element in sequence into the single most destructive attack that can be done by a single shinobi in recorded jutsu history, and cemented Hiruzen Sarutobi's titles as the Professor for his mastery of the elements, and more famously, the God of Shinobi for being able to pull off such a move to begin with. When it comes to traitors of Danzo's skill as a shinobi, it was a don't take any chances jutsu, even if it is known as the overkill jutsu, and Tsunade thought it would be a nice middle finger to Danzo killing him with the third's legendary jutsu, but seeing as no one shinobi can pull of the attack, it would be a 5 shinobi attack with Asuma for the wind, Sasuke for fire, Himura for earth, Kaharu for water, finished of Kakashi's Chidori for the most likely unneeded killing blow. Hiruzen's former teammates and son jumped at the opportunity for revenge for their father and friend Sasuke because of the evidence he found of the Uchiha massacre for Danzo's former arm and eye, and about Itachi's role, while not absolving his brother any if at all. It brought to light on a great many things about his family which angered and saddened him greatly. Danzo's death as for his brother and family. Kakashi was going to do it to regain any honor he still had left. Naruto's death affected him worst of all, with another comrade dead by his hand and lying to Iruka about the truth. Kakashi felt like he was the biggest failure of Team 7, Minato and Konoha. He had failed his own teachings and hoped Naruto's spurt could forgive him. Finally, the time has come. Tsunade raised her hand to signal the execution on Till, and here I thought the condemned were allowed some last words. Hokage-sama, Danzo said with smirk. Tsunade's eye widened. How? Jiraiya said in surprise and anger, only for a smiling Danzo to open his mouth and lifting his tongue to show the nullification seal under it all become annoyingly clear to Jiraiya how Danzo got past his silence seal twice no less. Tsunade mentally cursed Danzo. He got her with her own grandfather's law. She was wishing her grandpa didn't write so many merciful laws when he built Konoha. The whole point of the seal was to keep that from happening. People of Konohagakure, Danzo shouted for all to hear as silence fell on the crowd. My name is Danzo Shimura, Root Commander, the Dark Hokage Shinobi of Konohagakure. I am all these things, but the one thing I am not is a traitor. I have served Konohagakure for decades doing what must be done, but today I'm being punished for doing my duties as protector of the great tree. But even my beloved village can make monsters. First there is Me, the faithful commander of Root, then Orochimaru, man-made monsters, the both of us. The last but not by far the least, the Kyuubi brat Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the fourth's legacy and son. Danzo had to laugh at the expression from the crowd. You people have been tormenting and now killed the very child of your greatest heroes, Minato Namikaze and Kuisha Uzumaki. Ha ha ha. Danzo laughed insanely, all sense finally leaving him. And the best part is, from stopping Gaara to making Tsunade Hokage to all the treaties and trading agreements he has gotten for us, he has done more for the village than any of you have or will ever do, and because of your bigotry you never knew what was so obviously staring at you right in the face the whole time. This village has lost a fine shinobi, and what could have been an even greater weapon. If you think about it, you're all just as guilty as me. Danzo, in a wide, still cackling smile, looked at them all. It was only a matter of time before your torture and tormenting would have taken its toll on him. He wasn't the Kyuubi, you morons. You have been taking your revenge on an innocent child this whole time. He saved this village when he was minutes old. I want you all to remember that for the rest of your miserable lives. Danzo's hideous cackle echoed through the crowd of guilty, sad and angry villagers and shinobi. Tsunade, with rage and sadness, yelled at the execution squad to fire. Their hesitation due to shock of this revolution was all Danzo needed. I may die here today, but not by your order, Senju. Danzo activated his suicide seal and started convalescing, a smile on his face, knowing that civilians and shinobi alike are going to look for something or someone to blame for the secret behind Naruto's life and now death. Tsunade won't be able to stop them. It was never his intention to die like this, but he'll savor the ever so small victory with his last breaths, or so he thought as he was dying. Sand covered his body, his dying eye widened when that last thing he heard was sand coffin. A dying but shocked Danzo exploded into bloody chunks that spilled on the horrified crowd. Many turned to see Gaara in his usual crossed-armed stance, same usual look on his face. He didn't know if Danzo died before being crushed, but he hoped Danzo didn't. Without a single word spoken, Gaara made his way to the gates. Tsunade quickly made her way to the cage but was stopped by his bodyguards and siblings, weapons drawn. "Lord Cage," she yelled. Gaara continued walking but said, "Forget the meeting, Senju. I've had enough of Konoha to last me a lifetime. Please, Lord Cage," Tsunade said, begging in her voice. "We were tricked by Danzo. I never wanted any of this to happen, not to anyone and not to Naruto." The name itself out loud broke her heart. He was like a son to me, tears running down her cheeks. Temari couldn't help but scoff. "Some mother you are then. Naruto saved my brother's life and saved your village more time than I doubt any of you could count, and this is how you repay him." The words that came from Temari cut like a knife on her soul. Temari then turned to the Konoha 11, especially Shikamaru. "I cannot believe you all. Naruto, your friend, your comrade, someone who almost died for you more than once, who would have done it gladly to know you were safe. How? Could you do it? Did any of you even protest?" Neji spoke up on behalf of his friends and Cage. "We were following orders given to us by Hokage-sama. We didn't want to do any more than she liked ordering, but at the time he was a major danger, being controlled by the Kyuubi. Or so we thought. It took a week just for us to gather the nerve to do this mission." The depression was heard loud and clear in his voice. Gaara didn't want to hear any more. "We are leaving. I will discuss this with the Suna Council. Until then, Konohagakure is on very thin ice. Don't come anywhere near my territory or it's war, understood?" Tsunade nodded, not wanting to anger him any further. And another reason to thank Naruto. From what she heard, the old Gaara would have murdered everyone right then and there. It would be violent, bloody retribution for their willful murder of his most treasured friend and most likely second brother. She told her men that rushed to her aid to stand down and allowed Gaara to leave. With Danzo's death and the truth about Naruto's heritage deeds and death, Konoha had a lot to think about. All Tsunade could do is prepare for the worst that is yet to come. The day Gaara left was the day Konoha will remember as one of the worst days in village's history. During the execution of the traitor Danzo Shimura, they failed to keep him from revealing the truth about Naruto's death and failing to notice wave merchants in the village to sell their merchandise. When they returned to Wave, they went straight to the village leader, the bridge builder Tazuna, who was not pleased at all. The Konoha-Suna alliance was still active, manly due to the Cage's brother Kankuro. After explaining to Gaara that as much as he himself hated to defend the village after what they did to his brother and leader's best friend, Gaara had to understand that one ninja, no matter how great of a man he was not a good enough reason to abandon Konoha. Kankuro's reasons were more for military backing in times of war. Suna didn't fully recover yet from the losses of the Suna-Oto invasion, and Konoha did sign a new treaty after that. So Gaara could consider Konoha and Suna, even Kankuro was to oversee the new treaty to be signed on Gaara's behalf. Believe it or not, the makeup-wearing puppeteer can be a very good negotiator when he needs to be. This new treaty ensured Konoha would back Suna but also give the Cage all missions coming from Spring Country with no hassle from now on, and the resource they needed at a lower price. Konoha was backed into a corner with their old contacts and allies disappearing, and rumors of a war with Iwagakure. After hearing Konoha didn't have a Jinchuriki anymore and had to agree, Konoha was still the strongest village, but the Naruto incident, as it is called, cost the village a fortune with non-military countries that Naruto had a hand in, and lost respect from military villages for being so easily manipulated into killing one of their own, even though it was the son of the hated Yellow Flash and the Red Devil. It actually made it worse. Iwagakure would have tried to kill Naruto if they knew who he was. That much is true, but figured the son of the Yellow Flash would most likely be Konohagakure's version of royalty, so they were shocked to say the least, but saw an opportunity for a takeover of their most hated enemy now that they were short in legacy and more importantly a Jinchuriki. Kumogakure the Rikage did respect the fourth Hokage even though he wouldn't admit it, and his is blood brothers with a Jinchuriki like the Rikages before him as while, so hearing such treatment of the fourth's son disappointed him greatly. This realization just how far Konoha has fallen. Kurigakure was too busy fighting a civil war to care much about it, but still news travels fast. The Land of Waves cut the trade agreement in half, only really hiring Konoha to do guard duty on their caravans when they were passing through Fire Country on the way to other nations. They were barely C-ranked missions when Wave used to pay for A-ranked. It was that or loss it altogether. A statue was built over the Great Naruto Bridge in memory of their fallen hero. Cell 7 was banished from stepping foot in Wave territory under threat of total contact termination. Spring's daimyo Koyuki Kazuhana gave all her country's missions Tsunade following word of the Naruto incident. She didn't outright ban Konoha from Spring lands, but she did use her old contacts in the filmmaking industry to put an embargo on movies going to Konoha, costing the village a little bit of revenue because they're one of the only places in Fire Country that can accommodate a movie theater. The financial crisis got so bad for the first few years after the war that the council outvoted the Hokage. When it came to dipping into the joint Uzumaki Namikaze bank account, seeing as there was no living relatives for the money to go to, it saved the village but depleted it altogether. Jiraiya was heartbroken, using his dead students and wife's funds and his now deceased godson's inheritance to save a village he was starting to despise. Even worse, some counselors were found dipping into those funds for their own gain. Jiraiya's anger was stuff of legends after that. The once known Konoha 11 were now known as the Kyuubi killers to many in the village, who, even knowing of Naruto's heritage, they were still happy now the beast was dead, and to many others like the Ichiraku family, the traitor 11, the knowledge of what they have done hunted many of the legendary ninja. Team Guy split up. Rock Lee, realizing his actions cost him a rival and more importantly a friend, thought his flames of youth had now been taken, and as punishment for himself left the team in the tutelage of his longtime sensei friend and father figure Might Guy, stating, "I will not have your flames of youth end with mine." Rock Lee still trains non-stop but does not have the same vigor as he did after his self-exile from his sensei and friends. Neji, as while left gaining back his faith in fate, he now spends most of his time at the side of his cousin Hinata, keeping her safe from the world that would harm her when he wasn't on an Ambu mission or spending time with Tenten. Tenten spends most of her time as a blacksmith. She still takes missions and has joined Anbu. She didn't really know Naruto personally outside the occasional mission, but to see what he did for Neji and Lee made her sad. Depriving the world of such a positive presence to those around him hurt her. She still trained with Guy but noticed the loss of his students hurt her. Normally over the top teacher to no end. Team 8 depression and new goals. Hinata couldn't believe the news following Danzo's execution about Naruto. She loved him like no other and always saw a hero in the making and a future Hokage she would follow no matter what, but when informed by Tsunade about Naruto being the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and ordered for the mission to assassinate him to prove her loyalty to clan and country, Hinata couldn't believe it was she being manipulated by the Kyuubi the whole time. Was Naruto being controlled by it? If so, when? She couldn't believe it, but she trusted the Hokage. It hurt her more than anything to help in his murder, even more to find out it was for no reason, just a paranoid delusion of Danzo. She cried in her room for weeks on end. Even her father left her alone but came out with a sense of purpose. She vowed to change her ways in Naruto's memory by any means necessary. Eventually she beat her father in combat and became the new Hyuga clan head. Kiba may not admit it easily, but he saw Naruto as many thing a friend, a rival for Hinata's affection, and most importantly a member of his pack. It's the Inuzuka clan's way of making an outsider feel like family. He may have picked on Naruto from time to time, but that was Kita's way of showing brotherly affection for the blonde. After word got out, Kiba fell into a depression, only really holding it in until he and Hinata would meet privately. He wasn't trying anything, he just wanted to comfort his longtime teammate and friend. He vowed to ensure the safety of the pack by any means, going so far to make it a witnessed blood oath. Shino, much like Kiba, saw Naruto as a hive member. The Abarames, much like the insects they carry, believe that one must never betray the hive. To do so betrays one's very being. Shino's only comfort was that the Hokage, the queen, ordered his death, and like the good soldier he was, he followed those orders. Shino still had his emotions hidden like always, but to an Abarame he might as well be screaming his pain to the world. He also joined Ambu as a means of escape from his day-to-day. Team 10 overworking. Shikamaru did everything in his being to forget about the tragedy he took part in. The formerly lazy Nara has been putting all hands on deck. He has put everything he has into his training, his skills in strategy, and helping his father in being the new Hokage advisor. Shikamaru hasn't stopped for the last couple of years. People assumed it was so Shikamaru can be Konoha's ambassador to Suna, but he and Tamari haven't talked since she left. Ino become a full member of T&I in good standing since the Naruto incident, taking her job very seriously. She ditched her ditzy persona and has spent her time working. Choji wanted to quit being a shinobi altogether and only really stays because of his clan name and for his best friend Shikamaru's sake. He has since been working as a cook at his family restaurant. When not on missions, he dropped 50 pounds due to his lack of eating since the incident. Despite the Akamichi's will, and works more on his political education. Team 7 undermanned, overcompensating. Sakura spent her days crying privately in her home by night and giving a warm smile to patients by day. She continued to work in Konohagakure Hospital, focused on only her work. She took Naruto's death very hard. She reflected on her treatment of her teammate as kids, then comrades, then murderer and victim. She couldn't help but realize she was nicest to him the days before his assassination at her hands. She hasn't spoken to anyone in quite some time, expirations being her parents, her mother, for her kind words, and her father doing everything in his power to see his little girl smile again. Sakura as continues to train with Tsunade, but now just for medical reasons. The Konohagakure suicide rate went up from shinobi that mistreated Naruto, who severed with the late Uzumaki and Namikaze. Sasuke only really showed by chance while on a mission from Otogakure when he bumped to the Konoha team when they were about to kill Naruto. Regardless of his shock at the situation, he saw a chance to strike. He wanted Naruto dead for the power it would bring him, but Naruto, in a way, had got the last laugh. Naruto had a knife strapped behind his waist when Sasuke unexpectedly showed and stabbed Naruto with his sword. The blade Naruto had slashed upward, taking one of the Uchiha's legendary eyes before falling to his death off a cliff into the river below. The pain Sasuke felt was enough of a distraction for Jiraiya to knock him out. He was brought back to Konoha and placed in a cell for his crimes. He was there for 3 months. When he was brought before the council, Sasuke had to choose between swearing full allegiance to Konohagakure, have a seal placed on him preventing him from ever trying to escape the village again, and help take down Orochimaru, or be executed for his crimes right then and there. He chose life. Since then he has done everything and anything to prove his loyalty and has started to feel guilty over the death of his one-time best friend. Sasuke has been a recluse when not on missions. He proved his loyalty after his fight with Danzo when he saved the Hokage's life. He is now an Ambu captain. Kakashi rejoined Ambu for a time but quit following a dispute with fellow agents. He was placed on leave from duty and has been seen wandering around the village looking lost and depressed, finding out he killed his sensei's son. He has been forced into therapy. Tsunade did not want another Jiraiya Sannin trail of self-destruction. Tsunade's order to send the Kyuubi killers on the loyalty test in the way of the assassination of Naruto Uzumaki damaged her job and life. Trying to do right by Naruto's name, she had a tombstone made in his honor and a funeral. Even though Naruto's body was never found, she would send Konohagakure's best trackers but no successful finds. She wanted to quit being Hokage, but in Naruto's memory she stayed. She has since quit drinking on the job, even though she lives with the hell of a clear mind when doing it. Jiraiya has taken to the drink like an old lover. Ease almost never in his right mind and has been having recurring dreams of his student Minato and Kushina attempting to kill him, has had multiple suicide attempts after the kicking from Tenchi Ichiraku. Of all people, he has since been forced to move into Tsunade's houses so his teammate and help him battle his depression. He has also destroyed the blueprints for the seal he used on Naruto to stop the Kyuubi. The Init Jinchuriki seal has been sought after since, to his great shame and displeasure. Orochimaru would have most likely laughed for days about what happened to Naruto if it wasn't for losing Sasuke in the process, and hearing his former apprentice and future host now only had one eye and teamed back up with Konohagakure to kill him. He has since gone totally off the map but suspected to reappear when he can take his revenge. The Konohamaru Corp knew, hated, and goals. Konohamaru was sad, angry, and depressed. Naruto was his friend, his boss, his rival, and brother all round into one. Naruto was the first to see him for more than Hiruzen Sarutobi's grandson and treated him like any other comrade. Konohamaru has on more than one occasion tried to kill Sasuke but continues to lose. Tsunade keeps him from being arrested. He now puts all his time into training and doesn't look at the Traitor 11 as any more than that. His uncle Asuma has tried everything to apologize for the sack for his students, but it fell on deaf ears. His dream has changed form, wanting to be Hokage for the village to being one, so he can't get rid of Tsunade from the position. Moagi follows Konohamaru's lead and feels just as bad about Naruto but has tried to get him off his fixation on revenge. Udon backs his friends but harbors little faith in their future accomplishments. The Ichiraku's out the door. Tenchi Ichiraku was many things in his life: a loving father and ramen chefs. A generally happy and proud man, but before that an lesser known fact was he served Konohagakure, a shinobi. Before a knee injury forced him to retirement. Even lesser known information was he was on the same team as Minato Namikaze, which was how he liked it. He didn't fight anymore and was more than proud to work with his daughter every day for the rest of his life. He knew both of Naruto's parents but only realized it after seeing the boy eat ramen like his dad. He even secretly tried adopting him but was unable to. By the third, it broke the old man's heart to deny Tenchi, but he didn't say why. When Jiraiya entered his stand, his combat experience kick in and in a blind rage beat his former sensei almost to death and verbally did the same. The last thing he did was throw a knife in front of Jiraiya and walked away. Ayame was distorted at the loss of her little brother. She banned half the village from their stand, and her father spent some of the savings to leave the village. She managed to start a new ramen stand in Wave where they have reserved praise all around the other nations. Shizune loyal but bitter. Shizune continues to remain by her Kage aunt and mother figure's side, but Naruto's death made her feel a little worse for the wear. She was there when Tsunade issued the assassination of Naruto. It hurt her dearly to think the very person who saved Tsunade's and hers life once was going to die on Tsunade's order. When the truth came out, Tsunade and hers relationship took a nosedive. She is still working for her mentor but is still cold, a distant when to mood sets in. Iruka, the father that lost his son. When Iruka heard the news, he had the worst time hearing it. He was so angry, so sad at the loss of his boy he thought of as a little brother, then later a son. He stormed through the village like a madman. The humble school teacher destroyed several Ambu bodyguards to get to the Hokage's office. He then kicked down Tsunade's door and threw his headband at her and quit in spectacular fashion. The same day he was spotted leaving the village before an explosion was heard at the Uchiha compound. Konoha hasn't heard from him since, but that day would always be known as Iruka's rage. The end of Akatsuki. The only good news that came out of the Naruto incident, if you're not one of the villages that celebrated the real end of the Yellow Flash and Red-Haired Demon's bloodline, was after a year the Akatsuki organization fell apart due to being unable to get the Kyuubi. Many members of the organization didn't see a point in catching the remaining Jinchuriki and left the organization. Pain, Nagato, and Konan only joined Tobi, Obito, as a means to bring peace to the world, but with Naruto's death and word getting out of a seal preventing the Kyuubi from reforming later, they saw no reason to deal with the arrogance of the Uchiha. They teamed up on Tobi, who escaped in a time warp. Both continue serving as a Mekage and chief second in a Megakure. Itachi left following the news and went off the radar. He occasionally appeared in Konoha to see his brother's progress but finds himself saddened each time at the sight of his one-eyed little brother Itachi. Cursed Danzo. Itachi was dying, he was going blind, and his brother lacked the ambition to kill him right now. It made matters worse that Itachi himself was called the last loyal Uchiha when the truth came out about the massacre in a revenge ploy by Orochimaru's agents. Deidara quit following Itachi. The Mad Bomber tried to blow up the Uchiha but was killed following the attack by self-destruction. Iwagakure paid a heavy sum to the bounty hunter Kakuzu, who after witnessing the death made a deal. He will take the money for Deidara but in return provide Itachi with his underworld contacts. Both parties agreed. Kakuzu, due to the organization's now lack of money, left immediately. He was offered a job by the same shadow company that makes the bingo books, and the offer of cash and the erase of his bounty was too good to be true. He has since been working still as a bounty hunter but also does accounting with Kakuzu. You pay your debts on time, no expectations. He then disappeared from the organization but was later found in the ruins of his former home Yugakure that he destroyed and rebuilt as temple in Jushin's glory. Somehow he has gotten enough followers and financial backing to be a legitimate threat. The madman of Jushin is now the high priest of distraction. Kisame rejoined Kirihekure with the rebellion. He saved the new Mizukage Mai and revived amnesty for his crimes against the former Mizukage. Zetsu has yet to be found. Konoha, a root regrowing. Tsunade was busy in her office when she got an unexpected visit. It was Sai of all people. After Danzo's death, many root agents were captured with the help of Sai. Some were even welcomed into Anbu. Tsunade spoke. Sai, how can I help you? Sai, still not really able to talk with emotion, just said, Hokage-sama, I'm here to ask you to bring back the root Anbu with only the remaining former members. Tsunade was surprised. What? Why on earth would I do that? Hokage-sama, many of the root members have served the division since before Third Sama's decree to disband it. Others like myself were born in root. This is all we know. Anbu does not work the way we are accustomed to, and we still have Danzo's words echoing in the back of our minds to defend the great tree or die trying. That is root all. It's all we have ever were and will be. Tsunade spoke. Sai, if Danzo still has control over many of you, how can I trust you to be any different than him? Sai gave her a serious look. Danzo was mad with power, Hokage-sama, but his message was true: defeat the enemies and defend the great tree, and because we would report to you and you alone till the last of us is gone. No new members, just the remaining root shinobi. Anbu already does that. Why does root not like it? Anbu will never trust root. In their eyes we are but lucky traitors. His head lowered at that, but he continued. And in root's eyes Anbu is too soft and slow to act. At least in root we know where we stand with one another. Tsunade huffed. I'll give the matter some thought and give you my sincere answer by the end of the week. Sai bowed. That's all we ask, Hokage-sama. Tsunagakure unfortunately has to forgive. When Gaara returned to his village, he remained calm and cool as his people cheered their Kage's safe return. When he got to his office, however, Gaara went to a liquor cabinet that was behind a secret door in a bookshelf. The first Kage had installed Gaara's predecessor was a smart man, a businessman, and unwavering when it came his people, but even he liked the occasional drink. Gaara wasn't much for the stuff, but he had another reasons for the cabinet. There was a specific bottle he was looking for. When he found it, he took it out and brought it to his desk. He sat there looking at it for a few minutes until his door opened and his brother Kankuro walked in and with a serious tone said, Kage-sama, we need to talk. Gaara nodded without taking his eyes off the bottle. It was rare his older brother used his official title. He only ever said it on business to other villages or in very serious matters. What is it, Kankuro? It's about what happened in Konoha. Gaara's eyes narrowed. I see. As Kankuro sat down, he finally noticed the bottle his brother was staring at. What is it? This it is Wind County spiced wine. It's made with the scorched grapes by Wind Temple monks. It's worth a small fortune. Are you going to drink it? No. Then why is it out? This bottle was supposed to be a gift for Naruto. Naruto. For when he became Hokage, I was going to bring it to him and have a celebrity drink. As you know, I very rarely drink, so this bottle was for that very special occasion. Now it will just be a reminder of a dream that will never become reality. Kankuro looked down sadly. His brother's voice remained the same, but he knew the underlying message. Gaara, I'm sorry. Naruto was a good man and friend, and I wish I wasn't the one to say this, but we have to remain allies with Konoha. Gaara shot up from his chair and yelled, those bastards betrayed and murdered Naruto. Why must I let that go unpunished? Gaara screamed at Kankuro, who remained calm. Because you're the Hokage of Tsunade now, Gaara. This is a political job as much as it is a military one. When we attacked Konoha 3 years ago, we lost far too many ninja. Konoha was willing to sign another alliance with us, and we need their military backing as well as their resources to survive, and we can't let a personal vendetta get in the way of that. You know this. Gaara, Naruto is gone, but in the end he was one ninja. In the grand scheme of things, he's not worth losing our village over. It was a mistake, yes, but they were manipulated by Danzo, who's dead now, just as we were once manipulated by Orochimaru. You have to understand that. Gaara was still angry. Don't think for a moment that I don't realize this, brother. I've gone over the numbers. If we don't remain allies, it could escalate it to a war. They're afraid of more enemies, but what can I do? Just to let something like this slide will make us look weak. Gaara said, unsure, but Kankuro looked at his little brother and leader that he'd follow into hell without being asked. Konoha is going to want to resign another alliance with us out of desperation and to assurance that the old one won't be broken. That gives us the window of opportunity to make some demands, yet supply the same things we already brought to the table. In return, it will take a while for them to realize this, so we have time to get our facts straight. Till then we can have a non-hostility agreement with them. To say Gaara was surprised at Kankuro's diplomacy was an understatement. How do you know all this? Kankuro gave Gaara a sad smile. When father was trying to make you into a weapon, he trained Tamari and I in diplomacy and negotiations. We've had teachers just for that sense as long as I can remember. I believe we were supposed to hold your leech when he died, and one of us was supposed to the next Hokage. But all things considered, Gaara, I'm happy it's you. You deserve this more than anyone, and we will always have your back. Gaara smiled at his brother, but then needed to ask, how is Tamari holding up? Kankuro frowned. She's not happy with Konoha Shikamaru, especially. She thought he was smarter than this, but she's more worried about you. Gaara nodded. I'll see her after I finish some paperwork. It will distract me for the time being from current events. Kankuro looked at him. No, you two need each other right now. Go, I'll cover for you. Is that an order to your Hokage? If it needs to be, it's an order from your big brother. Very well, think you can handle it. It's not known as the Hokage's madness for nothing. I'll be fine. Gaara walked to the door. Suit yourself. As he walked out, Kankuro waited for the door to close and give it another minute before he smirked and summoned clones of himself that got to work while he went to take a nap. Over the cures of the last 10 years, Konohagakure as seen war 5 years ago. Iwagakure tried to attack Tsunade on a diplomatic assignment to said village. Her and Jiraiya, along with their bodyguards Shikamaru and Kiba, managed to escape by killing their way out. It was war. After that, Konoha, with the aid of Tsunade, won the war and kept up the name of the strongest village of the 5 great villages, but it survived only by a thread. Since then, the village has been accepting contracts that have not been very appealing to the Hokage, and on occasion thanked herself for allowing Sai to bring back the root organization, as they personally didn't care about or needed money, and allowed it to go into the village. And given some of the requirements of the jobs, the emotionally void ninjas were the only ones capable of completing them. The only other source of income was the backing of the fire daimyo, who was rather keen on keeping Konoha the strongest village, even if he was at the same time sad for the death of the Yellow Flash's son. He took it personally as he grew to respect the poor boy's father and D2C ranked missions, which don't really need anything like trained Ambu or Jonin. Tsunade's Hokage Gaara, now 26, got some satisfaction in seeing Konoha get knocked down a peg. Learning much about the art of diplomacy from his siblings, he managed to get the support of Karigakure's new Mizukage Mai, who was impressed by her fellow red-headed Kage enough to sign an alliance. It was enough for Tsunade to take Iwagakure's place as the 3rd great village, followed by Karigakure with Iwagakure for last place, but Kumogakure was still in 2nd and Konoha in 1st, but still Gaara's village has never been better. Konoha present day. The date October 10th has had a long terrible history in the village from the Kyuubi attack that resulted in the death of the fourth Hokage and his wife Kushina to the birthday of Naruto Uzumaki, and the beginning of almost 2 decades of torment. For the boy indeed October 10th is a staple of Konoha's history as a cursed day. The annual festival and memorial was on its way. The festival was for the Kyuubi attack, and the memorial was for Naruto Uzumaki after his heritage was revealed to the world. There were many who wanted to make peace with what they have done to the child that saved the village, only to be mistreated by the very people he saved. Others unbelievably still didn't believe it, that said it was Danzo's way of getting back at the villager, that maybe he himself was being manipulated by the Kyuubi into doing the things he did. Naruto's grave was routinely desecrated by these people and mended by others. It caused quite a bit of infighting between the village. On this day of October 10th, the Hokage would get a protection contract for the devil himself. The Hokage's office. Tsunade just ordered some ambu to arrest some anti-Naruto and pro-Naruto protesters. When Shizune came in, she looked at the Hokage with a little shock and confusion in her eyes, but talked to her as calmly as she could. Hokage-sama, there is someone here to see you. Tsunade looked up from her work and noticed the look in Shizune's eyes. What's wrong? Who is it? I don't know, but a daimyo apparently sent him. He's looking to hire Konoha for protection. Tsunade looked at her longtime assistant and said, "Send him in." Shizune nodded and waved the person and his guards in and bowed to him and closed the door. At first glance, the Hokage took an instant dislike of him. The person in question was a rather young-looking man. In his mid-20s, he had short jet black hair and same colored goatee and mustache, giving him an older look. He had green eyes that seemed to have a lot malicious about them and a grin on his face that told Tsunade he thought he was better than everyone and wasn't afraid to back it up. He wore a green and black Victorian-styled trench coat over a black dress shirt and green vest, and tie black pants and boots that reached tightly up to his shins. On his head was a green stove-top hat with a black loop around it, and around his waist was a green sash with black outlines, the symbols on it. The first she didn't recognize it was a clawed right hand, but the second symbol was for the land of steel trees. It was tied neatly on his right hand side, hanging freely down to his knee, and in his right hand he was holding a black cane with a silver skulled pummel she suspected had a hidden blade. He walked around to the Hokage's office and stopped at the pictures of the past Hokage and was staring intently at the fourth's photo. His bodyguards accompanying him wore regular black suits with matching dress shirts and boots, but with green ties and belts, black top hats with green loops, and on their belts were daggers, and in their jackets Tsunade spotted kunai holsters. She had very serious doubts that any of the 4 bodyguards knew ninjutsu or jijutsu, but they were most likely taijutsu experts, and the guy they were protecting was definitely a master of the trade. Tsunade wanted to be careful. She didn't like him, but Konoha needed funds. Tsunade looked at the man and said, "Welcome to Konohagakure, Mr." He didn't bother to look at the Hokage and instead continued to look at the Hokage pictures on the wall. "You can call me Green," he said. "It's an obvious fake name, but I'll humor you. What's the job?" "An SS rank protection mission for myself. Here's the list of the shinobi I require and the price I'm willing to pay per head." One of his men gave Tsunade the paper. She looked at the list and her eyes widened. Green wanted the now Konoha 10 with Kakashi and Jiraiya and Sasuke, and the money for each of them. He couldn't be serious in a SS rank protection mission is reserved for royalty during times of war, not for regular people unless they're extremely rich and given ease. Offering 10,000 feet 000 ryo per shinobi on the list. Tsunade couldn't back down. "Although your offer for Konoha's protection is a great and generous one, but I have a couple of things you and I need to talk about first." Green looked at the Hokage. "I get it, you need to see the money in advance." He snapped his fingers and another 4 men with matching clothes as his bodyguards came through the door with briefcases and opened them. Inside was 280 million ryo in cash. With that money, Konoha would be debt-free for a good long time. Tsunade looked at him calmly, even though inside she was amazed. Seeing the money is one thing, yes, but it's about some of the people on this list. Why them? Green smiled. I have an assassin after me and I'd feel a whole lot safer with one of the legendary Sannin, a student of Orochimaru, the only living student of your fourth Hokage, and the Kyuubi killers. Tsunade didn't like that last part. The name Kyuubi killers should never be used in my presence. The smile didn't leave Green's face. Would you have preferred the traitor 11? Green said with a larger smile at the Hokage's irritation. Nether. Look, it doesn't matter to me what you call them, doesn't change the fact I want them. Can you supply the people I want or not? That is one of the things I would like to talk to you about. I'm all ears. Well, in regards to, she retired from her shinobi duties 4 years ago and is now head doctor at Konoha General Hospital. Jiraiya is needed on a regular basis as the Hokage advisor and Hinata Hyuga as a clan head. None of them can be sent out, but I can get you some of our top Anbu too. No, Green said, cutting her off. I know what I want, Tsunade Senju. If money is the issue, I can double it for these 3, but I want the people on that list, no more, no less, or none at all. He ended with a serious tone. Tsunade knows the village needs funds, but she really wanted to beat this man to death. You're not used to not getting what you want, are you? I was used to it for a long time, Hokage, right up until I started taking what I wanted. Tsunade sighed. If you would be so kind, I'll see what I can do to get them to join. 3 days is all I ask. Green walked to the door and smiled at Tsunade. Then that's all the time you have, Hokage, just give me results and the end of it. One of Green's men opened the door for him when he stopped. By the way, where can I find the Uzumaki's grave? Tsunade openly glared at him. Why do you want to know that? Just wondering what all the hubbub is about. People here seems to miss or hate him, even his killers. Green said, looking more innocent than before, but Tsunade didn't buy it for a moment but said, in Konoha Cemetery. Shinobi Sector Common Area. Green smiled a humorous smile. Even in death he still can't be near his parents, chuckling at Tsunade. That the thought he walked out. Tsunade looked at the door wide-eyed and angry, then saddened. Naruto's heritage was common knowledge now, but his grave was in the area for the common shinobi. That particular area was for shinobi who were orphans or clanless, instead of being buried in the Hokage sector where the Hokages and their immediate family go, where his father and mother are. But due to the council not seeing eye to eye, Naruto was put in the common area as what was supposed to be a happy medium for those who wanted him buried in a Konoha grave and those who didn't want him buried in Konoha at all. Konoha Cemetery. Flowers were tossed on a grave. It was marked with, "Here lies Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze of Konoha, a shinobi comrade and friend, a true hero." Everywhere he went, the man known as Green stared at the grave in amusement, looking at the flowers already placed and the graffiti calling Naruto a demon bastard, and, "I'm glad you're dead, filth." As he was watching, one of his men was apologizing to him. Apparently one of his places was attacked and a lot of his men are now dead. It appears his coming, sir. What should we do? Which place this time? Green said calmly and really uncaring given the news. One of your narcotics labs in the Blaze village, sir. Well, that's about 4 days if you run non-stop, so no worries, we'll be gone by then, maybe. Maybe, sir. Yes, maybe. I am rather enjoying it here, and besides, I doubt even he would come attack me in the middle of Konoha. Sir, with all due respect, ease. A look from Green shut him up, then he bowed. Forgive me, sir. Don't mention it, I get it, you're a little scared of our friend, what with him trying to kill us and all, but don't worry, it's all under control like always. Green gave the man a reassuring smile, but he found it more frightening than anything. At Konoha General Hospital, Sakura Haruno's office. Sakura was sitting down at her desk drinking sake, an unfortunate bad habit she got from her mentor, half-handedly looking over medical paperwork, but really thinking about the old days in Team 7. She hated the festival. Every time it came, she'd work a double shift to take her mind off of it, and with the constant fights that happened between the anti and pro Naruto leagues, the hospital was never short on staff to have something to do. In her musings of the past, she failed to notice the knock at her door till it got louder. She looked at the door, hid her drink, and said, "Come in." The door opened to reveal Tsunade. Sakura put her drink back on her desk and filled another glass. "Tsunade-sama," Tsunade said with a warm smile, "how have you been?" Sakura leaned back in her chair and took a sip of her drink. Tsunade looked at her. That good I guess you've been overworking as usual. Tsunade ended with a sigh. What's this about Tsunade-sama? We haven't gotten together in a while and you know I don't like being bothered during the festival time. Tsunade knew all too well Sakura's feelings about the festival. She still hasn't forgiven herself or Tsunade about the Naruto incident. Tsunade gave Sakura an apologetic look. Sakura, this is going to be hard to ask, but I need you to return to active duty. As a shinobi, Tsunade flinched at the 1,000-yard stare Sakura gave her. What was that, Hokage-sama? Tsunade gave her a sympathetic look. We have a client going by green. He is paying for a SS rank protection contract with Konoha, but he wants Jiraiya, Sasuke and Kakashi and the Konoha 10 as a whole, you included. If he doesn't get all of you, he'll straight up cancel the whole thing. Sakura, Konoha needs the funding and what he's offering we can't ignore. I wouldn't come to you if it wasn't this important. Sakura was angry. She had retired from the shinobi life after the war was over and has spent the last 4 years healing the people of Konoha and trying her best to get over her personal demons. She worked her way to being head doctor and surgeon. To ask this now, she looked at Tsunade. Why me? Why can't he get some else? Sakura yelled in anger. I'm sorry, Sakura, but Konoha must come first in this. You must understand that sacrifices have to be made in order for the village's survival. Sakura glared at Tsunade. Sounds like something Danzo would say. That's not fair, Sakura. Neither is this, Tsunade. After everything that happened between us, you would take away everything I've worked hard for. How do you even know he's on the up and up? Tsunade grabbed a glass Sakura poured earlier and chugged it. When she was done, she looked at Sakura. He showed me the money, he's offering 10 million each, that's 280 million in total, and he even said he'd pay double for you, Jiraiya and Hinata. Do you understand what we could do with that money, Sakura? Sakura gave questionable look. Still SS rank protection. At that price, who or what is he running from? I don't know. I have 3 days to get you 3 to join, then we can get all the information and make a decision. A decision that appears to have already been made, which is why I'm being forced back to active duty. Oh, I'm sorry being asked. Sakura sighed. Look, I know Konoha is in a bad place right now. I understand that much, Hokage-sama, but it's taken me years of non-stop work to get here. It wasn't just your training, it was my own. Well, now you want me to throw it out the window. How can you make up for that? Tsunade was a little annoyed now. Look what happened with Naruto and the war is something that if given the chance I would change in a heartbeat, but I can't. All I can do is try to be the leader of this village, and right now it needs the money I'm trying to keep any more wars from happening. Don't you dare think for a moment that you're the only one suffering, Sakura Haruno. Sakura glared at Tsunade. She long since lost her fear of the Hokage's legendary anger. I had to kill my friend, my comrade, under your order, an order you didn't fully look into. I had to stop a whole armada of Iowa ninja to protect the MASH base I was at, and still had to deal with the death of my patients and staff because of the scouts that came from behind when reinforcements didn't arrive, because some royal assholes didn't see the point of spending the resources for the sick and dying, and you did nothing to stop that from happening. Sakura's glare intensified. So don't tell me I can't complain when you come into my office to ask me to be a shinobi again to make some rich asshole happy. Tsunade understood where Sakura was coming from. Since Naruto's death, Tsunade could barely hold her own in the Hokage chair. The war with Iwagakure didn't help either. Sakura, I have known suffering long before you were even born. I lost my brother, lover and drive to be the best. She looked at her former apprentice, sadness unhidden. Naruto was the only person that was able to convince me to come back to Konoha and take up the mantle I hated so much. Tears fell from her eyes with every word. When I saw Naruto, I saw Naoki, I saw the son I never had or deserved to have. When I issued that order, I felt like not only was I killing Naruto, my only true successor and family next to Jiraiya, but the last piece of my soul. I keep the cage position and remained sober while doing it as my own punishment for the crime I have committed to such a good person that should have replaced me long ago. As angry as Sakura was with Tsunade, she was still sympathetic. I don't like this, but I'll join as the medic, but after this I'm done for good and you will never come to me like this again. Tsunade nodded. She left without saying a word while Sakura poured another drink, not really knowing which emotion to feel right now. Jiraiya, Tsunade's comrade and former teammate of Team Hiruzen. The official story is that he's the Hokage's advisor and spymaster of Konohagakure. In a way it's true. Jiraiya is still the spymaster, but times have been tough on him since Naruto's death. He drinks more than Tsunade ever did. He's quicker to anger and he doesn't even do his research anymore, to which Tsunade actually missed. She didn't like it, but at least it still showed that some small part of him was still alive. She's been having him take therapy, but it hasn't helped at all. Right now he's getting plastered at one of Konoha's shinobi-only bars, with all others in the room giving the legendary Sannin a wide berth, all except the one across the table from Jiraiya. It was Anko Mitarashi, the former student and only survivor of Team Orochimaru and third in command of T, and I wasn't one to run from anything, especially a drink. She sat there quietly, eyes locked on Jiraiya. It annoyed the Sannin to no end. He looked at her. "What do you want, Anko?" Jiraiya asked. Anko remained silent and had a sip of her drink. "Everyone else is smart enough to leave me alone, why not you?" Jiraiya said angrily. "It's not about being smart, it's about being scared of you, old man." "What? I know fear. I've experienced it because of that bastard teammate of yours, and I use it every day at work, and I am feared by reputation alone. I'm no Sannin, but I can be more scary than you could ever be." She stood up and whispers to Jiraiya, "I'm just making sure we don't have another Orochimaru." With that she left, walking past Tsunade, who was coming in. She walked over to a stunned Jiraiya and sat down at his booth and said, "How have you been, Jiraiya?" Tsunade mentally cursed herself for that one. He looked at her. "What do you want? Can't you see I'm busy drinking?" The years have not been good to Jiraiya. He had dark circles under his bloodshot eyes from lack of sleep due to a rescuing dream of Naruto and his father and mother's anger with him. He smelled of booze. His muscle tone has gotten thinner. His spiked hair got sticking and dirty due to lack of bathing, and depression was all too clear in his face. It broke his oldest friend's heart. Jiraiya looked at Tsunade, waiting for a response till, "We have a new client going by green." Jiraiya looked at her, puzzled. "Whoa, why should I care?" "Because he's paying for a SS rack protection mission at Demayo, precise 10 million per head." The money did interest Jiraiya. "That's a lot, but still, what does it have to do with me? I've seen the money, but I don't trust him as far as I can throw him." Jiraiya smirking a little. "You throw people pretty far, Tsunade." She glared at him. "He want Naruto's assassins as bodyguards, you including." That got Jiraiya angry. "What, why us?" "I don't know. I have Ambu following him around. I don't know what he's planning or who he's running from. I need you to keep tabs on him. Dig something up if you can before we take the mission. I don't want to, but Konoha needs money." Jiraiya lowered his head. "I've done so much for Konoha." "Tsunade, maybe too much. I lost my student because I wasn't there because of Konoha. I lost the woman I thought of as a daughter-in-law because of Konoha. I couldn't even be there for my godson because I had a spy network to look after for Konoha. I brought back my oldest friend to take up a position she despises because Konoha needed a leader, and with all that after, I just was finally thinking I could be the godfather I should have been. For 13 years I had to kill my godson because of Konoha's bigotry and the suspicion of a psychopath." He poured another drink. "Everything I've lost for this village. I understand now why you didn't want to come back and why you punished yourself now." A tear ran down his eye. "I'm sorry, Tsunade, I'm so sorry." With a look from their Hokage, all shinobi left the bar, and the bartender walked over to the booth, dropped off a bottle and 2 glasses, and locked the door of the bar and left to give them some privacy. In the Konoha Memorial Festival, Asuma and Kurenai were walking around checking out the sights. As they were, Asuma noticed something. It was the young man known as Green with his guards. Both he and Kurenai saw the Ambu on the roofs watching as he walked nonchalantly with his cane. He passed Asuma. They both turned and looked at each other. They looked down and took note of the sashes around the others' waists. Green looked at Asuma's, who did the same. He smiled and winked before leaving. Kurenai looked at Asuma. "What was that all about?" she said, a little worried. He turned to her. "That man, he's a guardian," Asuma said with no room for doubt to a surprised Kurenai. "What, how do you know?" His sachet labels him as a guardian of the land of steel trees, means his like me and the 12 shinobi guardians of the Fire Lord. But what's he doing here? Asuma said, lighting a smoke. His kind don't leave their country unless escorting their daimyo, and they don't need bodyguards, which what I assume the guys with him are. We should take this to Tsunade-sama ASAP. Kurenai nodded and they vanished. One of Green's bodyguards walked closer. Sir, I think that guy made you. What should we do? Green continued to walk but said, nothing. It doesn't matter if he knows what I am. The money is all they'll care about in the end. But sir, Green turned to him, don't argue with me, death. Sounding in his voice, his guard looked at him, sweat going down his face. Sorry sir. Green stared the man down. Come on, it's a festival and I can use a drink. Those Ambu are starting to annoy me, Green said, knowing full well he was being followed since he left the Hokage office. By the way, you're buying, maybe that will shut you up for a while. His guard shivered. Yes sir. One of the other guards walked closer. Sir, we have more reports coming from your spies. They saw him again en route to Konoha. He looked pissed. Green smiled at his men. Sounds like we're in for some good times soon, but still send word to our branch in Sparks Village, see if they can hold him off for a while. You think they can handle it, sir? No, but they were lacking in their payments last week, so might as well let our friend deal with them. Yes sir. Who knows, maybe they'll kill each other. Green chuckled. Though I know it will be pretty one-sided. They'll at least make good meat shields till he gets here. Now let's get those drinks. His men shouted. Yes sir. The Hokage office. Asuma and Kurenai arrived at the Hokage's office, but the only one there was Shizune tidying up the paperwork for tomorrow. She saw the two shinobi. Asuma-san, Kurenai-san, what brings you here tonight? Shizune, where is Lady Tsunade? Asuma said. Shizune thought about it for a moment. She is probably getting the people she needs for a mission we got from our new client. Why? Is it a guy wearing a green overcoat and top hat? Yes, what's this about? Asuma-san. Shizune said, starting to get worried. Kurenai spoke. Asuma thinks this guy is a guardian like himself. Asuma was annoyed. I don't think I know he is. After I joined as a shinobi guardian, we did homework on other types of guardians around the nations. This guy is one from the land of steel trees. Shizune was surprised. Are you sure? Asuma, steel tree guardians only leave their land when they intend to kill someone. Asuma nodded, confirming. Kurenai was a little confused. Wait, I thought guardians never leave their daimyo's side and don't go on missions. Again Asuma nodding, saying, that's right, so now you know why I'm confused. Shizune nodded but said, nevertheless he's meeting with the council in 3 days and Tsunade is busy right now. You will have to see her tomorrow. Asuma was not pleased. What, why? Because she is trying to make this deal happen, but my advice is you're going to be representing your clan at the meeting, so make sure everything you say is right. The second day of getting Green's list finished came, and it took all of Tsunade's inner strength to leave Jiraiya in his room where she carried him. She wanted to be there for him, but duty called, so she had to leave. A passed out Jiraiya, still mumbling in his sleep, apologizing to the ghosts of his past. Next up, the Hyuga clan head. Hyuga compound training area. Hinata Hyuga was training with her sister after a long morning of politicking with the Hyuga council over her short reign as clan head. Hinata banned the use of the cage bird seal and was instrumental in turning the main and branch families into one big clan. She wasn't very kind in words with her speech of get along or get out. It was more for the main branch than anything, but all understood. She also gives a small fortune every year to the Naruto Initiative, a charity to help orphans of war and the abandoned people of the elemental countries to great success, started by a now 21-year-old Inari with the backing of Koyuki Kazana. As Hinata was training, Neji walked up to her. Hinata-sama, Tsunade-sama is here to see you. Hinata stopped and looked at her sister. That's enough for today, Hanabi. Work on straightening out your arm strikes and speed. Naji here will help you. Hanabi nodded as her and Neji walked to the training dummies. In the Hyuga tea house. Tsunade was sitting cross-legged on the floor sipping her tea waiting with 2 down and 1 to go. She hoped beyond hope that Hinata would join with the least complications, but even though she's the Hokage, politics with sending clan heads out on missions is a totally different thing. As she waited, thoughts have entered her head. She didn't like him one bit, and whoever was after him was probably strong and deadly enough for the SS-ranked assignment. A former Akatsuki member. Someone in the bingo book. An entire nation. Green didn't seem like the kind of person to not to piss people off. She'll get to the bottom of it after the meeting. While she was on her way to the Hyugas, she also bumped into Asuma, who told her his finds on Green, making it more strange right now. Getting Green's list was a good way to get him to slip and tell her who he was. The door to the tea house opened, reviling Hinata. She wasn't one for kimonos or fancy dresses. Instead, she wore standard shinobi undergarb with a white coat, not unlike Tsunade's, but the sleeves were tighter around the arms and wrists, and a black strip going down the back with the Hyuga crest in white with the black background. Hinata sat down opposite Tsunade and nodded in respect to her cage. Tsunade-sama. Clan head Hinata. Tea was poured in Hinata's cup by a Hyuga member. She picked it up and sipped it. What brings you here today, Tsunade-sama? Tsunade tried to be careful with the words. Konoha has a new client he's looking to hire us for a SS-ranked protection mission. If I'm not wrong, that is usually reserved for daimyos in times of war. Are we at war? Hinata eyed the Hokage. Not that I know of, but he is rich enough to pay the cost. Could be for who or what's after him is that deadly, or it could be for his status. I honestly don't know, Tsunade said. So you need Neji. Neji and you? That got Hinata's full attention. Pardon me, Hokage-sama. Now Tsunade was really careful when saying, the client goes by Green for now. He wants me to assemble a team of bodyguards he chooses. They are everyone involved in the Naruto incident. Hinata's eyes widened for a split second, then she looked at the Hyugas in the room. Everyone out. They bowed and left. Tell me everything, Tsunade-sama, Hinata said seriously. Don't leave anything you know out, Tsunade talked lightly. For right now we know wants everyone from the Naruto incident and that an assassin is after him, but Green already has bodyguards watching him. My guess is they're not trained shinobi, so he wants the extra backup. Hinata didn't seem happy with the lack of information. Don't clients normally have to give more than that for Konoha's help? Tsunade answered honestly. They do right now. The money is the big factor of why I'm trying to get you on board now, but after that Green has to appear in front of the Konoha Council for approval, where he must give us all the information. Hinata was cautious. The shinobi counselors only. Tsunade shook her head. Shinobi and civilian both, because it affects Konoha as a whole considering the rank and prince. Hinata didn't like that one bit. How much is he paying? Tsunade was honest. 10 million a head and 20 million to get you Jiraiya and Sakura brings the cost to 310 million. Hinata was also honest. Those people won't look at the risk, only the reward. Tsunade agreed and spoke. I know, Hinata, but Konoha needs that money and unfortunately we may have to deal with him. It frustrated Hinata. Did he say way he wants us? Tsunade lowered her head. He said he'd feel safer with the Kyuubi killers with him. That bastard, Hinata said angry. I know, but what can I do to get you to join? Tsunade said, hoping. Thoughts raced around Hinata's head as a clan head. Especially for the Hyugas, one must be prepared for anything. She know all too well a lot of the elders hated having the cage bird seal banned from use on the branch family and would use her absence as a chance to bring it back, and the former branch family would fight for their new freedom. It could be a war of families. She had to consider all options. Normally Neji would watch over things when she was away, but he's going as well, so that leaves one option. In order to make sure my clan continues to run smoothly, I will place you as interim head of the Hyuga clan, Tsunade-sama, and I will join given that 5% of the money is donated to the Naruto initiative. That is non-negotiable. Tsunade spat out her tea. What? Hinata looked at the Hokage. Under Konoha guidelines, if the clan head is away and no one is picked to run things, the Hokage takes control of clan affairs as interim head. I don't like it either, but my control on things would be challenged when I'm away. Tsunade saw the sense, but she had to say, but really 5%, do you know how much that is? She shudder. 15,500,000, Hinata said nonchalantly and continued, would you prefer 10% Hokage-sama? Tsunade was sweating. Didn't think so, the Hyuga head said, then her eyes went dark under her lavender hair. Besides, consider this your chance to regain my full trust. I'm gambling on you, Tsunade, with the safety of my clan. Tsunade understood and nodded. When's the meeting? The day after tomorrow. Understood, my apologies, but I must attend to other business. Hokage-sama, I will see you at the meeting. If there is anything you need as interim clan head Hanabi, we'll be your second. With that, Hinata bowed and left her family's tea house while some Hyugas came to respectfully show Tsunade out. Now all she had to do was prepare for the council meeting with Konoha Council Chamber. Day of meeting. Tsunade spent the better part of the night making sure her questions and answers and facts were straightened out. So she could counter anything Green sent her way. Something told her he could be a manipulating bastard when he wanted to be, as the council was getting into order. The clan heads, with Hinata representing the Hyugas and Asuma for the Sarutobis, were ready. The remaining Konoha 10, Sasuke and Kakashi on the side, standing at full attention when the chamber doors opened, revealing Green and company. He walked and sat down. No bowing, no respect, no nothing. The council was not pleased. From the moment he entered, the council were not fans. A civilian councilor stood up. It is customary to bow before the council when entering the chamber. Others nodded in full agreement. Green looked at him with piercing green eyes. It sent shivers down their spines before smiling. My humble apologies, O mighty one, he said sarcastically, but last I checked I'm willing to pay a very large sum to Konoha if not angered, so in that regard shouldn't you be bowing to me? So I will. The counselor was annoyed but sat down, to Green's very obvious amusement. The Hokage watched the situation take place before banging her hand on the table. Make the council come to order. She looked at the client and spoke clearly. The council has come here today to hear the job presented by it is up to us to decide whether or not Konoha should accept it. Understood. At the council's nodding, she continued. You came to us with a SS racked protection mission for yourself and are willing to pay up to 310 million ryo for this. Is that current? Hearing that amount got people whispering in the chambers even more. When Green nodding his yes, for us to do such a mission we need all the answers. Will you comply to this? Again Green nodded yes. First, what is your real name? Kamen. Guro Kamen, former guardian and now interim daimyo of the land of steel trees. The now known Kamen said, smiling at the look of the council. You're an interim daimyo, Tsunade said, shocked. Going on about 6 years now, Kamen replied. What happened to the actual daimyo? A councilman asked, now more respectfully. He and his family were found dead, killed by the hands of an assassin with no other heirs. The position fell to the lead guardian, myself, Kamen said nonchalantly. Where were you during this? As a guardian, especially the head, you should have been with your daimyo at all times, Asuma said, not buying the story, which Kamen caught on to. Unlike your daimyo, mine liked his family time. He would normally spend this time alone and he wouldn't stand any objections on our part. That's when the assassin stuck. Asuma nodded but still didn't like the answers. Tsunade continued her questioning. Do you know anything about who's after you? He nodded. Do any of you know or remember the Taijustu, an assassin master known as the Shade? Eyes widened from the shinobi council as well as the older civilians. The Shade, that's impossible. He died by Lord Fourth and Lady Kushina's hand back in the Third Shinobi War. One was there, Tsunade said in shock. If that's true, then how on earth did he train the Guardians of Steel Tree, I wonder? Kamen said, holding his chin in false thoughtfulness. Kamen looked at the counselors seriously for a moment. You see, the fight that is in Konoha's history books is false. When the Shade and the Fourth and Kushina fought, it was a draw. Just like Sarutobi was the god of shinobi, the Shade was the god of taijutsu, and just as strong. He could even survive the 8th gate of unlocking. That was the reason why the yellow flash and red-haired demon couldn't take him out. He was that powerful, but he allowed people to think he was dead for unknown reasons so he could live a pretty relaxing life in Steel Tree, where he trained the guardians, myself included, up until his death 6 years ago. Hinata was the one to ask. If he is dead now, how's he after you? Kamen looked at her as if she was stupid, because this Shade is the one the original passed the name down to before he died. Duh. Hinata didn't like his tone. Care to word that a little more respectfully? He smiled at Hinata. No, but anyway, the title of shade went to the one who mastered all of the master's skills till he was either equal or above the original. Shikaku Nara took interest and asked, so the person who's chasing you is equal or stronger than Lord Third in his prime in taijutsu? Murmurs went around the chamber when they heard. One of two, yes, Kamen said, prompting the Nara head to ask, who's the other? Kamen smiled. Me. Inochi looked at Kamen in disbelief. If you're really that strong, why not deal with this yourself? Tsunade bit her lip. She was cursing the Yamanaka in her head for insulting the rich guy's manhood, but Kamen didn't seem to care. It's quite simple actually. I've fought him more times than I care to count, but we are even each time I want to kill him personally, but he's starting to gain allies as he's going along. Asuma asked. Then why hire Konoha for protection instead of a assassination mission? Kamen looked at him. Look, he was stupid as well. Because none of your assassins couldn't possibly get the shade. He has to come to you, and when he does, I want to be ready. The shinobi counselors understood his reasoning. The shade is a legend even to this day. Anbu and any assassins still try to compete for such a title, and even though he wasn't a member of Konoha, he was one of Gai's taijutsu heroes. Shikaku was wondering something. If I might ask, Lord Fourth and Lady Uzumaki were two of the most powerful shinobi in Konoha history, and I doubt that this shade was planning to fake his death the whole time, and he fought the both of them more than once. If he is as powerful as Lord 3 Ed, why didn't he just kill them right then and there? That earned the Nara head a glare from the others. Kamen raised his eyebrow. Well, that's the million ryo question. My guess is it was his great deal of respect for Kushina Uzumaki's skill. He always said he wanted to train her. He didn't care for Minato, said he was in the way of one of Konoha's greatest warriors' potential. Shikaku raised his own eyebrow. Lady Uzumaki's potential for what? Kamen answered plainly. Don't know, maybe to be to an even better warrior than she already was. Every time he fought them, he noticed Minato was a two-trick pony. Flying Thunder God Rasengan FTG Rasengan over and over. He know each time prediction was one of his self-trained skills. He'd say being predictable means you die. He took a breath, but when it came to Kushina, her skill in swordsmanship and taijutsu appealed to him. For a student that could learn from a master, Kushina had what Minato never did: his respect as a warrior. A civilian counselor stood up angrily. The fourth Hokage was the greatest hero we ever had. How dare you, or some good-for-nothing assassin, insult him? Kamen gave a smirk. I'm guessing you're one of the counselors that used to send gangs after his son Naruto, was it? For the amount of fanaticism you're currently showing me. That made the counselor wince. Don't forget, your attitude is what killed your greatest hero's son and what could cost you your village, so sit down and shut the up and know your place, because I bet if either Minato or Kushina were alive today, they would be more pissed at you than me. Kamen said, smirking. Jiraiya, though angry with Kamen's lack of respect towards his dead student and godson, asked, why was the shade even at Steel Tree when he made a name for himself as a freelance assassin? Kamen smirked, pissing the Sannin off. That would be up to the original shade to answer. It's not like he kept notes. My guess is it was where he chose to retire, and he also trained others. The one after to me is his best student, Kamen said with a frown. Kamen looked at the Hokage board. Have I answered all you questions, Hokage? Will you take the job or not? Tsunade bit her lip but said, the last thing is, where are you going and how long would it be? Kamen thought about it. Back to Steel Tree, and for as long as it take to get the shade. Tsunade nodded. Okay, your shinobi escort will be waiting for you at the front gates 6 sharp. Kamen nodded. Excellent. He turned to his men and they left the briefcases on the table as he them left, not before saying to his new bodyguard. Tsubasa said, everyone dismissed. Later at the Akamaiki restaurant, the Konoha 10 were sitting at their usual booth. Choji cooked everyone's favorite dishes and began to eat. I hate our new client already, Shikamaru said. Everyone nodded. There is something about him I don't trust either. He seems like he would rather kill than talk. Neji said, I don't know, but I'm surprised. He is supposed to be a guardian like Asuma-sensei. Should we be worried? Ino asked. I'm more worried about this shade guy chasing him, especially if he is as strong as the third. Kiba said. The god of taijutsu incredible, I want to meet him and test myself against him, Lee said in all seriousness. Are you crazy, Lee? He'd kill you, Tenten said angry. At least it would be an interesting fight, Lee countered. Ever since the Naruto incident, Lee has punished himself with constant missions training and even joined Sasuke's squad. Lee has a profound hatred for the Uchiha but follows orders to the letter. He has also been more realistic about shinobi life and is a stone-cold killer when he has to be, and more calm and detached from his friends. Nevertheless, we expected the contract. We have to deal with it no matter how troublesome it is, Shikamaru said, taking a sip of his drink. Sakura, however, had her own thoughts. Does it not make you wonder why he wants everyone responsible for Naruto's death? He was blatant about it too, Kita answered with, who knows, maybe he likes the Kyuubi killer angle. Lee gave Kita an annoyed look and said, or the traitor. 11 inches that made them lower their head. They ate their meals slowly, thinking about tomorrow. At the Red Leaf Shinobi Bar, Sasuke, Kakashi and Jiraiya sat at their booth talking about the goings-on around the village and about their new client. So Guro Kamen is a guardian like Asuma. That interesting, Sasuke said, sipping his drink. It's not as important as this shade person that after him Minato-sensei used to tell horror stories about him. If you were on his list nothing could stop him from getting you, Kakashi added, a little worried. Shade was a prick, plain and simple, Jiraiya said on his third drink to his companions first, but that didn't change the fact he was a strong one for someone who doesn't use jutsus, Kakashi replied. Jiraiya nodded at that and said begrudgingly, I did fight him myself a handful of times. He was able to counter everything I threw at him. He then added, but what do you expect from Hanzo, the salamander's old mentor? That made the other two men's eyes widen. But Hanzo is from a Megakure and the shade is from steel trees. Why would he train Hanzo? Kakashi said, astounded. I doubt the shade was originally from steel trees, but I guess he saw something in Hanzo that I saw in those 3 kids I trained from there. Maybe it's something the rain there that with people I don't know. Sasuke had to ask. Hanzo was a shinobi, but you said shade wasn't. How did he train Hanzo? Hanzo was a samurai before he became a shinobi. I figured shade trained Hanzo before he made the transition from one to the other, but might have helped him with his stealth skills afterward. Shade may not have been a samurai, but he knew his weapons. The two nodded. It made sense, kind of. Still, the way everyone talks about him, you'd think he was the boogeyman, Sasuke said. He was. We only found out know that he was alive after all this time. Like I said before, he may have been in Steel Tree, but I doubt he was born there. Even Kamen said it was his retirement spot. Jiraiya signed and the continued, and to make matters worse, this new guy is supposed to be stronger. Shade wouldn't just pick anyone to carry his name. Jiraiya was visibly worried at that. Sasuke wasn't as brash and egotistical as he used to be, but still said, we have 2 Sharingan users and a Sannin. How could he beat that? He smirked, but Jiraiya looked at the boy in his eyes and said, a Sannin he's beaten back when I was in my prime, and Shade has killed dozens of Uchiha more than once, and with you 2 together is only equals 1 full set, saying it as brutally honest as possible. Sasuke didn't like hearing that, but let it go. No use in fighting Jiraiya on that. But he stood up. I'm going home. I'll update the men before the client gets there in the morning. He left without another word. The new and spooky information is going to bother him the rest of the night. That was a bit harsh, Jiraiya. Quote.